Karen called the FBI to my land. I'm the director of the FBI. You ever have that feeling you're being watched? Not by cameras, but by entitlement. The kind that smells like cucumber lotion and power-tripping PTA meetings. That's what I felt the second Karen Beaumont waved at me from across her pristine white fence, like she owned not just her yard, but gravity. I didn't expect drama when I bought the ranch. My job was already a pressure cooker I was looking for, quiet. I'd been with the FBI nearly 3 decades. Field work, counterintelligence, interagency task forces, you name it. And now, as director, I wanted space. Real space. 5 acres of it, fenced in and nestled at the edge of a town too small to have a Starbucks. What I didn't know was that it bordered Whispering Oaks Estates, a gated community that believed more in appearances than property law. And Karen, she was the unofficial queen. No real authority, just a clipboard, a Bluetooth earpiece, and the blind confidence of someone who once ran a fundraiser and thought it gave her legislative power. I was still moving boxes when it started. She marched over, heels clicking down her imported cobblestone driveway, clutching what looked like a self-printed badge in one hand and a rolled-up pamphlet in the other. "You're putting up a non-regulation gate," she said by way of greeting. I stood there, sweat dripping from my temple, looking at the old wrought iron gate the previous owner had left. It's been here 20 years. It's not HOA approved. I'm not in the HOA. Her eyes narrowed. Well, the aesthetics affect the community. Karen. Right. Yes, she replied, smiling like I just complimented her haircut. I'm not in your HOA. This property is zoned outside your line. County land. Agricultural permit. I'll call the board. Do that. She paused, scanning me, then sniffed. You're not from here, are you? No. But I read zoning ordinances like novels. She didn't like that. Over the next few days, I noticed strange things. A stack of my firewood disappeared. A package went missing. My front cameras blinked off, someone had moved them. My dog, Dagger, a retired K9 Belgian Malinois, growled at her every time she passed by. I tried to be patient. I thought maybe she was just overzealous. But it wasn't zeal. It was obsession. I ran into Dave, my neighbor to the east, while feeding Dagger. Dave wore overalls and a veteran ball cap. Watch her, he said, nodding toward Karen's house. Last year, she tried to report my grandson's lemonade stand as an unlicensed commercial enterprise. Seriously? Yeah, she thinks she's Homeland Security. I chuckled, but that chuckle died when I found spray paint on my gate 2 days later. Unsafe. Remove. That's when I filed a local police report, and that's when things escalated. 2 days later, I came home from DRC early and found 2 men in cheap suits wandering near my barn. I stepped out, hand instinctively on my hip, not drawing. Just ready. Can I help you, I asked, voice flat. We're with the FBI, one of them said, flashing a badge so fast it might have been a hotel key card. Really, I said, arching a brow. What field office, they blinked. Richmond. I was just in Richmond yesterday. I replied, Director Langford's still on medical leave. Who's your SAC? That's what I thought. They started to backpedal. I pulled out my own ID federal issue, high clearance, unmistakable. I'm Director James Cooper. You two are either playing dress up, or you're about to be charged with impersonating federal agents on federal land. They ran. I checked my gate cam. Karen had spoken with them not 20 minutes before they arrived. She stood there, gesturing wildly at my barn, pointing at Dagger, even holding up a file folder like she was presenting a case. That night, I called a contact at the regional office. You guys send anyone to Whispering Oaks? No one, sir, came the answer. But we did get a strange community complaint forwarded to us. Something about weapons stockpiling, dog aggression, and suspicious vehicles. Sounded like a crank. She sent a name, Karen Beaumont. Of course, it wasn't just a busybody. Karen was trying to bait the federal government into removing me from my land. She didn't know who I was yet, but she knew she hated not being in control. So I let her play. For now, I thought the fake agents would be the end of it. I reported them. I even had enough camera footage to file formal charges, but I held off. I wanted to see how far Karen would go when unchecked. Turns out, the answer was farther than even I imagined. The next morning, my email pinged with a forward from the FBI's to just see, press unit. Subject public complaint filed against unknown individual. Potential domestic threat body forwarded from HOA Board of Whispering Oaks Estates. Submitted by President Karen Beaumont. Allegation, suspicious behavior on neighboring property. Possible weapons training. Dog aggression. Night activity near barn. Recommendation federal surveillance. She actually submitted it to the D.C. field office. The timing was terrible. With midterm elections coming and Homeland Security on edge about internal threats, the bureaucracy was twitchy. Her letter was so full of buzzwords, someone at HQ didn't bother verifying it before adding me to a quiet review list. I wasn't flagged exactly, but I'd triggered an internal algorithm one I helped design. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the report. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been my name on the header. Outside, Dagger barked once and went still. I stood, walking to the front window. Karen. Again. She was taking photos of my dog now. Every time he so much as shifted, she clicked her camera. Dagger was lying under the oak tree, chewing a tennis ball. I stepped out onto the porch. You know you're on my property line again. Right, I'm gathering evidence, she snapped. For what that he plays, fetch that he's violent. I stepped forward slowly, keeping my voice level. Karen, you don't get to weaponize paranoia. He's a retired service dog. I don't care what he was, he growled at me. Because you walked into my barn last week, I had probable cause for trespassing. She flinched. That afternoon, I called an old friend at the Office of General Counsel. Do me a favor, I said, and run a trace on any HOA claims filed in the last 60 days for Whispering Oaks Estates. The results weren't just bad, they were chilling. Karen had submitted 6 separate complaints to various agencies, EPA, USDA, Homeland Security, Bureau of Land Management, and yes, the FBI. All of them fabricated, all of them referencing an unknown man in his 40s with military-grade fencing, attack dogs, and suspicious deliveries at odd hours. It read like a conspiracy theorist's notebook, but it was enough to nudge the system if you didn't know better. One call to my internal security advisor triggered a scramble. An unannounced site check was already being scheduled. I stopped it barely. James, what the hell's going on out there? My deputy asked over the secure line. A fake HOA queen is trying to stage a federal raid on my chicken coop, I said dryly. He didn't laugh. She thinks she's doing national security a favor, or she's trying to bait you into reacting. I stayed quiet. She doesn't know who you are. Does she? Not yet, but she was about to find out. I drafted a memo under my actual title and routed it back through every agency she'd contacted. I included timestamps, coordinates, body cam footage from local police, and the IDs of the men she sent to impersonate agents. I marked it Level 1 civilian threat, false flag activity. That's a phrase that carries weight. The following Friday, 2 unmarked black Suburbans rolled into my driveway, real FBI. Karen saw them from her window, and just like clockwork, she strutted outside, lips curled in satisfaction. But this time, she wasn't called. This time, she wasn't the informant. This time, they were coming for her. The 2 Suburbans didn't even brake when Karen stepped into the street. One swerved wide, tires hissing on asphalt. The other turned directly into my driveway. I stepped outside calmly, clipboard in hand, credentials tucked under my arm. Karen was behind me now, fuming like she'd just been denied front row seats to a play she wrote. The 2 agents exited their vehicle, Special Agent Riley and Asik Boone. I'd recruited Boone personally in 2007. He gave me a knowing nod. Director, he said, and Karen stopped walking. Dead. In. Her. Tracks. Director, she echoed, eyes darting between Boone and me, of what I turned slowly to face her. The FBI. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Boone held up a tablet and tapped to bring up a report. We're here to investigate a string of false claims made to federal authorities, all routed through anonymous proxies and HOA accounts originating from your address. Mrs. Beaumont. I wait. No. I was trying to help. He's dangerous. Boone raised an eyebrow. He is your neighbor. Do you know who you've been reporting? Karen shook her head slowly. You've made formal claims against the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's not a neighborhood feud anymore. That's a federal offense. She blanched. I handed Boone the clipboard, my printouts of her emails, phone call logs, and fake officer uniforms used by the men who trespassed on my land. We had enough to charge her with impersonation of a federal officer via proxy, filing false reports to federal agencies, stalking harassment, tampering with national security infrastructure, the part where she falsely claimed I had drone weaponry on site. Karen, eyes still wide, started backing away. I didn't know who he was, she stammered. He lied to me. He didn't put it on his mailbox or anything. Agent Riley frowned. You thought that gave you permission to send fake federal agents onto his land. It's just HOA enforcement. I stepped forward. No. Karen, it's you pretending to be one. There is no registered HOA for this cul-de-sac. I checked. You filed a corporate HOA name with the state, but never secured jurisdiction. You've been pretending to run a neighborhood you don't even legally control, Boone added. We have sworn statements from 6 other residents who've been fined or harassed by you. 3 said you threatened their kids. 2 said you took packages off their porch and blamed HOA guidelines. Karen started crying. You can't do this. You're just trying to ruin me. No, I said. You did that yourself. I just filed the paperwork. And then she screamed. It wasn't a defiant, angry scream. It was a collapse. A woman who finally realized the walls she'd built to trap everyone else were actually her own prison. Neighbors started gathering on the sidewalk. Phones came out. A few people clapped. Are you really the FBI director? A teenager asked. Yes. Cool. Karen was arrested quietly. No cuffs in the driveway. Boone respected the optics, but she was taken into federal custody for questioning. Later that week, she was indicted on 3 felony charges and several misdemeanors. The local news ran the story under a bold headline: Fake HOA president filed FBI complaints. Neighbor turns out to be bureau director. It exploded. Within hours, I had interview requests from every major network. I declined them all. This wasn't about publicity, but it was about precedent. By that weekend, 3 more HOAs across the state were being audited for similar abuses. A wave had started. And Karen was about to find out that when you play pretend with power, real power plays back. The fallout was swift, public, and brutal. The moment Karen's mugshot hit the local news lipstick, smeared, eyes bloodshot from tears, our sleepy neighborhood turned into a media circus. Reporters lined the sidewalk outside her 2-story colonial. Cameras zoomed in on the fake HOA headquarters sign she had staked in her front garden. It had always looked ridiculous. Now it looked like evidence. But this wasn't just about a woman with a clipboard and a superiority complex anymore. This was about a system, how easy it had become for people like Karen to exploit gaps in community organization and weaponize the illusion of power. All across the country, stories poured in: a fake HOA president in Arizona who fined a single mother $500 for non-approved paint tones. A retired couple in Georgia whose flower beds were bulldozed by a neighbor citing non-existent landscaping codes. A man in Colorado who installed a swing set for his daughter, only to have it dismantled by 3 men in yellow vests claiming they were from the association. I'd lit a match. Now the fire was spreading. Back home, Karen had bonded out. She didn't make eye contact with anyone, not even her so-called inner circle of neighborhood sycophants, who scattered like startled pigeons. The once daily flyers she printed, yes, printed demanding lawn uniformity and mailbox compliance, stopped overnight. Her printer was silent. Her porch light, always glaring at 120 watts, burned out and stayed dark. But the damage she caused lingered. Old man Darnell from across the street showed me the notice she once tacked to his door: a $75 fine for unraked leaves. He didn't even have a tree in his yard. She just didn't like that I didn't salute the flag on Tuesdays. He muttered. Cindy and Marcus, a biracial couple 2 houses down, revealed how Karen once accused them of lowering property values because of the urban music they played on weekends. She'd tried to evict them, called ICE once, even though both were born in Indiana. She had created a quiet war, and most folks had been too scared, too tired, or too polite to fight back. That changed now. A community meeting was called, not by me but by Ava Green, a high school teacher who lived 3 doors down. The flyer simply read, "Let's talk about Karen and the power we gave her." 87 people showed up. There was anger, shame, guilt, but there was also courage. I didn't say anything when she yelled at my son for skateboarding. One father admitted, I should have. I didn't want to make it worse. She fined me for putting up a pride flag. Another woman said quietly, I thought I was alone. One by one, the stories came out like confessions, and I just listened. Not as the FBI director, but as a neighbor. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and held up the thick dossier we compiled during the investigation. I didn't name names, but I confirmed what they already feared Karen had created: fake letterhead, forged citations, and used a burner phone to send anonymous HOA complaints she then used as justification for action. She didn't just bend the rules. I said, she was the rules, because we let her be. Then I said what I'd waited months to say: she is no longer your neighbor. She's a federal defendant. A hush fell. Then a slow clap started from Darnell, of all people. The room erupted. People cried. People hugged. People felt something real. That was the night we decided to form an actual neighborhood council, with votes, with accountability, with rules written in daylight, not behind closed doors and passive-aggressive flyers. Karen's house, once the self-proclaimed seat of the HOA, was now a pariah's nest. The blinds stayed drawn. The lawn grew wild. Someone egged her car. Someone else filled her mailbox with glitter. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. The power vacuum she left didn't become another throne. It became a table, and we all got seats. Karen stood there in the dirt, arms still half-crossed but trembling now. Her once smug face was pale, twitching as the reality set in. The murmurs around the neighborhood rose into a roar as phones stayed up, cameras rolling, neighbors gasping. Special Agent Knox looked from Karen to me, then gave a subtle nod. Director Caldwell, your lead. The moment the title hit the air, Karen let out a pathetic little laugh. You're joking. No. You're lying. This is a prank. Karen Whitman, I said slowly, clearly, letting the weight of each syllable fall like bricks. You have falsely reported a federal emergency, impersonated law enforcement by claiming non-existent HOA authority, and entered private land without consent multiple times. That's not just harassment, it's criminal. Her jaw dropped. I was just trying to protect our community from what my horses, my dog, or my unpermitted fence on land you don't even own jurisdiction over. By now, half the town had gathered. Deputy Slade had returned with the sheriff. We got 3 official complaints on file, Slade said, holding up a clipboard. All forged under your HOA's name, which doesn't even exist. Karen, the sheriff added, this county doesn't recognize your HOA. You've been warned multiple times. Karen looked around wildly, eyes darting like a cornered animal. But I have the bylaws. I printed them. They were on the community board. A bulletin board isn't law, I said calmly. You created fake codes, fake violations, and tried to enforce them with threats. That's not leadership, that's delusion. Knox handed me the sealed folder. Here's the compiled report for your office. We'll process the federal part separately. Local laws got the rest. I turned to the crowd. Folks, I never wanted this drama. I moved here for peace, not to pull rank. But no one should be bullied by someone hiding behind fake authority. That ends today. The applause hit like a wave. Karen tried to shout over it. You're all sheep. He's manipulating you. Karen Whitman, the sheriff interrupted. You're under arrest for filing false reports and trespassing. Turn around. She didn't. So he turned her himself. Cameras captured everything: the cuffs, the tears, the way she screamed about her HOA rights as if they came from the Constitution. With Karen facing formal charges and her fake HOA disbanded, our town finally exhaled. We formed a real neighborhood committee with elections, rules, and transparency, and I stepped back. I went back to being just Ray Caldwell, the guy who rides horses at dawn and grills steaks at dusk. But the mailbox never stopped overflowing. Letters from veterans, civil servants, small-town folks thanking me for standing up, for not hiding my title when it mattered. And then there were the kids. They started a Saturday club called the Real Justice League, led by my daughter, no less. Every week they role-played fair community councils. And yes, they even wore little badges. Karen's house was eventually sold, quietly, no bidding war. If you've ever been targeted by someone hiding behind fake rules or imagined power, know this: you're not alone. Stand tall, speak truth, and document everything. Because sometimes the most powerful authority isn't the badge you carry, it's the line you draw. What would you have done? Would you have gone public or stayed quiet? Comment your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, power, and what real community should look like.